The Galactic Confederation stretched across thousands of star systems. For over 3,000 years, they lived in peace. Most aliens came from gentle worlds with nice weather and calm seas. They had never needed to grow strong or tough. They had never faced true danger. Commander Zeltek stood on the bridge of his ship. The radiant dawn, his crystalline body glowed with a dim blue light, showing his worry. Through the main window, he watched as another Confederation ship exploded in silence. That was the 5th ship lost today. "Status report," he said, his voice calm despite the fear he felt inside. Officer Miralyn looked up from her screen. Her 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of distress among her kind. "Not good, Commander. The Harvester ships have broken through the outer defense line. They will reach the colony world Juno 3 in 6 hours. Zeltek turned to look at the tactical display. 8 massive enemy ships moved in perfect formation. Each one was the size of a small moon. Around them flew hundreds of smaller craft. Protecting the giants like insects defending their queen, the Harvesters had appeared 3 weeks ago at the edge of Confederation space. They did not respond to messages. They did not make demands. They simply began to consume. Their massive ships would surround a planet, lower giant machines to the surface, and strip it of all resources. Minerals, water, plant life, animal life, everything taken. When they finished, only a dead rock remained. "How many civilians on Juno 3? Zeltek asked. 2 million, sir," replied his second-in-command, Vilasim. Her skin changed from its normal pale green to a worried yellow. "The evacuation is only 20% complete." Zeltek closed his eyes for a moment. The Confederation Council had not believed the first reports. They had wasted precious time in debates and discussions. Now people would die because of that. "Delay, where is the rest of the fleet?" he asked. "Admiral Krendor's ships are defending the Helios system. The 3rd Fleet is still 2 days away. We are all that stands between the Harvesters and Juno 3. 10 ships against the Harvester Armada. It was not enough. The Confederation had enjoyed peace for so long that their weapons were weak, their tactics unpracticed. The crew of the Radiant Dawn had trained for space rescue and scientific missions, not war. The ship shook as enemy fire struck their shields. "Shields at 60%, reported the defense officer. Zeltek made his decision. "Send a message to all ships. Fall back 2. Defensive position Beta 7. We will make our stand there." The crew followed his orders, but he saw the doubt in their movements. They knew they could not win this fight. The best they could hope for was to buy time for more civilians to escape. As the Radiant Dawn moved into its new position. Communications. Officer Perinal approached Zeltek. She was from a species known for their caution and strict adherence to rules. "Commander, I must speak with you privately." Zeltek followed her to a small room just off the bridge. When the door closed, Perinal spoke in a whisper. "Sir, I have been studying the Harvester attack patterns. They are methodical, efficient. They will not stop until they have consumed everything in their path. I know this, officer. We will fight as long as we can. But sir, that is just it. We cannot fight them. Not with our resources." She paused, her long fingers twisting together. Nervously. "There is another option, but it goes against Council protocols." Zeltek felt a chill run through his crystalline form. "You mean the quarantine system?" Perinal nodded. "Earth." The word hung in the air between them. Earth, a Class X death world. Home to a species that evolved in conditions most Confederation races found nightmarish. High gravity, extreme temperatures, toxic air, dangerous animals, and frequent natural disasters. But more concerning than the planet itself were its inhabitants. Humans were classified as Deathworlders. They were physically strong, with dense muscles and thick bones. They could survive injuries that would kill most Confederation species. They could run for hours without rest. They could live in environments from freezing cold to burning hot, but their physical traits were not. What had led the Council to quarantine? Earth? It was their minds. Humans were aggressive, competitive, and took risks no sane species would consider. Their history was filled with war. They had nearly destroyed their own planet several times before they reached space. The Confederation had discovered Earth 50 years ago. After brief contact, the Council had voted to establish a quarantine zone around the Sol system. Observation posts monitored human development, but direct contact was forbidden. The Council directive is clear, Zoltek said. No contact with Earth is permitted under any circumstances. With respect, Commander, the Council did not face the end of all Confederation life when they made that rule. Parinal's voice grew stronger. The humans have ships. They have weapons. They understand war in ways we never could. Another blast rocked the ship, shields at 40%. Came a cry from the bridge. CL-Tech knew she was right. The Confederation forces could not stop the harvesters. Millions would die, world after world would be consumed, but the humans... Stories of their battle prowess had spread even though the Council tried to suppress them. Some said a single human soldier had killed 12 armed guards during the last diplomatic mission, using only his bare hands. Could they save the Confederation? Or would they finish what the harvesters started? If we break quarantine, we risk Council punishment, Zoltek said. If we do not, there may be no Council left to punish us, Parinal replied. The ship shook again, harder this time. Direct hit, shields at 20%, we cannot take another. Zoltek returned to the bridge. His crew looked to him for guidance. For hope, he had none to give them, only a desperate gamble. Officer Parinal, prepare a distress signal, he ordered. Send it on all frequencies, direct it toward Earth. The bridge fell silent. Even the warning alarms seemed to quiet for a moment. Sir, his second-in-command said, the protocols expressly forbid. I know what they forbid, Zoltek interrupted. I also know that if we do nothing, billions will die. Send the signal. Parinal moved to her station. Her fingers flew over the controls. Message ready, sir. What should it say? Zoltek thought for a moment. How do you ask for help from a species? You fear? How do you beg warriors for mercy? Keep it simple, he said at last. To Earth authorities. Confederation under attack. Harvester forces overwhelming our defenses. Millions of civilian lives at stake. We request immediate military assistance. Coordinates attached. Parinal sent the message. It traveled at speeds beyond light, crossing the vast empty space between stars, heading toward a world of predators. Now we wait, Zoltek said, and we fight as long as we can. The radiant dawn turned to face the approaching harvester ships. Around it, the remaining Confederation vessels moved into formation. They were outnumbered and outgunned. But they would buy time? Time for civilians to escape. Time for help to arrive, if it ever did. On the main screen, Zoltek watched as the massive harvester ships drew closer. Behind them floated the broken remains of Confederation outposts and defense stations. Ahead lay Juno 3, its blue oceans visible. Even from this distance, its cities twinkling with the lights of 2 million souls who did not yet know their danger. All ships, prepare to engage, Zoltek ordered. Target the lead vessel, concentrate fire. As his ship moved forward, Zoltek wondered if he had made the right choice. He had broken the Council's most important rule. He had reached out to a species known for violence and conquest. The humans were coming, or they were not. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same. The message traveled through space for 6 hours before it reached Earth. When it arrived, it set off alarms at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters in New Geneva. Captain Elizabeth Monroe was in the middle of a training exercise when her wrist device buzzed. She looked down and saw the urgent message, report to command immediately. She was 51 years old, with short gray hair and dark skin that showed scars from her years of service. She had spent most of her life in space. Exercise terminated, she called out to the group of young officers she was training. Return to your stations. 10 minutes later, she stood in the command center. The large room was filled with screens and busy people. At the center table sat General Richard Hayes and Admiral Susan Chun. Their faces were serious. Captain Monroe, the general said, thank you for coming quickly. We have a situation. What kind of situation, sir? The admiral pressed a button. A voice filled the room, speaking in an odd musical language. Then it switched to basic English, to Earth authorities. Confederation under attack. Harvester forces overwhelming our defenses. Millions of civilian lives at stake. We request immediate military assistance. Coordinates attached. Elizabeth felt. Her heart beat faster. The Galactic Confederation. She had been part of the first contact team 20 years ago. She had stood on alien soil and spoken with beings from other worlds. She had also been there when the Confederation Council voted to quarantine Earth. She had seen the fear in their eyes when they looked at humans. "Is it real?" she asked. "We believe so," the Admiral said. Long-range scans show energy readings consistent with large-scale space combat in the sector they mention. Elizabeth studied the star map that appeared on the main screen. The Juno sector was near the edge of Confederation space, about 4 days' travel at maximum speed. "Why would they contact us?" General Hayes asked. "They made it clear they wanted nothing to do with us." "Because they're desperate," Elizabeth sighed. "The Confederation species evolved on peaceful worlds. Their bodies are adapted for harmony, not conflict. If they're facing an enemy they can't talk to or reason with, they have few options." "And they think we can help?" Admiral Trun asked. "They know we can fight," Elizabeth replied. "That's why they fear us." The room was quiet for a moment. Then a new voice spoke. President Alan Carter had entered the command center. He was a tall man with a calm face and steady eyes. "The Security Council is meeting in 1 hour," he said. "I want your recommendations by then. If the Confederation is truly under attack, we need to decide what Earth's response will be." Elizabeth, the General, and the Admiral spent the next hour reviewing all available data. They studied the long-range scans, analyzed the message pattern, and calculated the resources that would be needed for a response mission. When they entered the Security Council chamber, Elizabeth felt the weight of the moment. 12 people sat around a large table representing Earth's nations and colonies. They would decide whether to answer the call. President Carter opened the meeting. "We have received a distress signal from the Galactic Confederation requesting military assistance against an enemy they call the Harvesters. Admiral Chen will present our intelligence assessment." The Admiral stood and spoke clearly. "The signal appears genuine. Our long-range scans confirm massive energy discharges consistent with space combat in the Juno sector. We believe a significant conflict is occurring." General Hayes spoke next. "If we choose to respond, I recommend a rapid response task force. 3 battle cruisers, support ships, and a full Marine complement. Captain Monroe's ship, the USS Constellation, would lead. They could be ready in 24 hours. Elizabeth saw the doubt on some council members' faces. She understood their concerns. Earth had been at peace for decades. They had built their fleet for defense and exploration, not distant wars. "The Confederation quarantined us," said one council member, a woman from the African Union. "They judged us too dangerous to join their community. Why should we risk our ships and people for them?" Elizabeth stood. "Council members, I was part of the first contact team. I have met the Confederation species. Yes, they fear us, but they also respect us. For them to reach out now shows how serious this threat must be. And if these harvesters defeat the Confederation?" asked another member. "Would they come for Earth next?" "We don't know," Elizabeth answered honestly. "But if they consume worlds, as the message suggests, they will eventually find us. Better to face them with potential allies than alone." The debate continued for another hour. Some argued that Earth should focus on its own defense. Others believed that helping the Confederation could lead to better relations in the future. A few worried about the cost in lives and resources. Finally, President Carter called for a vote. 10 hands raised in favor of sending help, 2 remained down. "The decision is made," the President said. "Captain Monroe, you will lead the response force. Your mission is to assist the Confederation against the Harvester threat. You are authorized to use all necessary force to protect civilian lives, both human and alien." Elizabeth nodded. "Yes, sir. One more thing," the President added. This is a military mission, but also a diplomatic one. The Confederation fears us. Show them they don't need to. Within hours, the task force was assembled. 3 battle cruisers, the Constellation, Valiant, and Intrepid, along with their support. Ships and 1,200 Marines. Elizabeth stood on the bridge of the Constellation, watching as her crew prepared for departure. Commander Bill Rivers, her second-in-command, approached. "All systems ready, Captain." The Valiant and Intrepid report the same. "Good, Elizabeth." Sighed, set course for the coordinates in the distress signal. "Maximum speed." "That's pushing the engines hard," Bill noted. 4 days of red line operation. "Those people don't have 4 days," Elizabeth replied. "Every hour we delay means more lives lost." As the ships prepared to leave Earth orbit, Elizabeth thought about the aliens who had sent the call. She remembered. Their delicate bodies, their gentle voices, their peaceful ways. They had never known the kind of conflict that shaped human history. They had never needed to become strong or tough or ruthless. Now they faced an enemy they couldn't understand or reason with. An enemy that only wanted to consume. They needed humans. They needed Deathworlders. "Task force ready for departure," Bill announced. Elizabeth nodded. "Take us out, Commander." Emergency acceleration protocols. The massive engines of the 3 battle cruisers flared to life. They pushed away from Earth, accelerating faster than was comfortable even with inertial dampening systems. The crews would endure 4 days of this, pushing themselves and their ships to the limit, but that was what humans did. They pushed limits, they endured discomfort, they did what needed to be done. As the blue curve of Earth disappeared behind them, Elizabeth studied the star charts showing their destination. "Hold on," she whispered, though no one in the distant Juno sector could hear her. "We're coming." Commander Zeltek had not slept in 6 days. His crystalline body was dim, showing his exhaustion. The Radiant Dawn, once the pride of the Luridian fleet, was badly damaged. Of the 10 ships that had faced the Harvester attack, only 4 remained. They had retreated to the moon of Helios Prime, where nearly 1 million refugees had gathered. "Status report," Zeltek said, his voice rough from giving too many orders. "Not good, Commander," said Vilasim. "The Harvester ships have destroyed our outer defenses. They will reach Helios Prime in 2 days. How many refugees have we evacuated?" "Less than half. The transport ships are working at full capacity, but there are too many people." Zeltek closed his eyes. So many would die. He had broken the Council's most important rule by contacting Earth, and for what? It had been 6 days since they sent the distress call. No response had come. "Commander." The sensor officer's voice was high with surprise. "Unknown vessels approaching from Vector 227, configuration not in our database." Zeltek felt a wave of fear. More enemies? On screen. The main screen showed 3 large ships leading a group of smaller vessels. They were angular and sleek, built for speed and power. Their design was unlike anything in Confederation records. "Are they responding to identification requests?" Zeltek asked. "Yes, sir. They identify as Earth Defense Force, human vessels." A shocked silence fell over the bridge. The Deathworlders had come. "They're requesting direct communication, Commander." Zeltek straightened his posture. "Accept." The screen changed to show a human female. Zeltek recognized the species' features from the old contact reports. She had dark skin, short gray hair, and eyes that seemed to look right through him. To his eyes, her dense muscles and exposed teeth made her look like a predator. "Commander Zeltek? I'm Captain Elizabeth Monroe of the USS Constellation. We received your distress call. The Earth Defense Force is here to assist." The human's voice was controlled and confident. Zeltek noticed she showed no signs of fear. "Captain Monroe, your response is unexpected but welcome. The situation is dire. We've been monitoring the enemy movements during our approach. Request permission to send a tactical team to your vessel to coordinate our defense strategy." Zeltek hesitated only briefly. Granted. Within an hour, a small human ship docked with the Radiant Dawn. 6 humans entered the Lurdian vessel wearing what they called standard environmental suits. Though to the Confederation crew they looked like battle armor, each human carried at least 2 visible weapons. Their leader was a tall male who introduced himself as Major Jason Cole. His face was marked with scars, and he moved with the careful grace of a trained fighter. "Commander Zeltek," the human said, extending a hand in what Zeltek remembered was their greeting gesture. After a moment's hesitation, Zeltek touched his crystalline fingers to the human's gloved hand. "Thank you for coming, Major Cole. I did not know if Earth would answer our call." "We don't leave people in trouble," the human said simply. "Now, show me your tactical displays. I need to understand exactly what we're facing." Zeltek led the humans to the command center. The Confederation officers moved back, creating space. Some could not hide their fear reactions, changing skin colors, flared breathing membranes, or subtle shifts in body posture. The humans pretended not to notice. Major Cole studied the displays showing the harvester ship's positions. 8 World Eater-class vessels with support craft, he said, moving in standard formation, predictable attack patterns. He looked at Zoltek. "How many civilian lives are at risk?" "Almost 1 million on Helios Prime, millions more on nearby worlds." Cole nodded. "Captain Monroe has developed a strategy, but we'll need to coordinate with your remaining ships." For the next hour, the humans outlined their plan. It was unlike anything the Confederation forces would have considered. Instead of the careful, defensive approach that Zoltek would have used, the humans proposed a direct assault. "You want to attack them?" Vilasim asked, her skin turning pale with shock. "They outnumber us." "Their ships are larger and more powerful." "Numbers and size aren't everything," Cole said. "Your sensor data shows their weak points. Their ships are built for efficiency, not combat. They've never needed to defend themselves because no one has ever truly fought back." Another human, a female named Lieutenant Samantha Gray, pointed to specific areas on the harvester ship diagrams. "Their shield generators are external. Their weapon systems have predictable recharge cycles, and their formations leave gaps we can exploit." Cole continued, "Our battle cruisers will target the lead World Eater. Your remaining ships will engage their escort vessels. Meanwhile, our fighters will slip through their defenses and hit critical systems." "Such an attack would require precise timing," Zoltek said, "and your pilots would face extreme danger." "That's our specialty," Cole replied with a slight smile. "Captain Monroe is preparing the final details now. We can implement the plan in 6 hours. As the meeting ended, Zoltek asked to speak with Major Cole privately. "Why did Earth respond to our call?" he asked when they were alone. "The Confederation voted to quarantine your system. We judged your species too dangerous to join our community." Cole was silent for a moment. "Because you asked for help," he said finally. "And because we understand what it means to face extinction. Your species nearly destroyed itself several times before reaching space," Zoltek said. The report spoke of global wars, nuclear weapons, biological attacks. "Yes," Cole acknowledged. "We know what it means to stand at the edge of the abyss. We've looked into it more than once." He met Zoltek's gaze directly. "That's why we're here. No one should face that alone." Before Zoltek could respond, an alarm sounded. "Commander to the bridge." Vilasim's voice came over the communication system. "The harvesters have changed course. They're accelerating toward Helios Prime." Zoltek and Cole rushed to the bridge. The tactical display showed the harvester fleet moving faster than before, on a direct course for the moon where the refugees waited. "They've detected our ships," Cole said. "They know something's different." He activated his communication device. "Captain Monroe, the enemy has changed tactics. They're making a push for the refugee center." "Understood, Major," came the human captain's voice. "Plan has changed. We're moving to engage now. Get your team back to the constellation. We need more time," Zoltek said. "Our evacuation isn't complete." Cole looked at him, his expression grim but determined. "Then we'll buy you time. That's what we do." He turned to leave, then paused. Commander, when the fighting starts, keep your ships at a safe distance from ours. Why? Zaltek asked. Because we're about to show you why you classified Earth as a death world. With that, the human left, his team following close behind. From the bridge of the Radiant Dawn, Zaltek watched as the human vessels moved to intercept the harvesters. The 3 battlecruisers accelerated at speeds that would have killed most Confederation species without specialized protection. They maneuvered with what seemed like impossible precision, changing direction faster than the harvester targeting systems could track. They fight like they have nothing to fear, whispered Villasim, watching the human ships engage the much larger enemy vessels. Perhaps that is why we feared them, Zaltek replied. The battle had begun. The Deathworlders had answered the call, and now the harvesters would learn what it meant to face an enemy who knew how to fight back. The Harvester forces moved toward Helios Prime with cold purpose. Their 8 World Eater ships traveled in perfect formation, protected by swarms of smaller vessels. They had consumed 3 planets already in this sector. They expected no real resistance here. They were wrong. Captain Elizabeth Monroe stood on the bridge of the USS Constellation. Her face was calm, but her eyes were focused and alert. Around her, the crew worked at their stations with quick, practiced movements. All ships, this is Captain Monroe, she said into the communication system. Execute Operation Thunderbolt. The 3 Earth battlecruisers accelerated toward the lead harvester World Eater. They moved at speeds that would crush most alien bodies, even with protection systems. Human bodies were different. They had evolved on a high-gravity world. They could withstand forces that would kill most Confederation species. Target their forward shield generators, Elizabeth ordered. All weapons, full power. The Constellation, Valiant, and Intrepid fired together. Their energy weapons struck the same point on the massive enemy ship. The World Eater shields flared bright under the assault. At the same time, smaller human fighters launched from the support ships. They were fast and agile, darting between the harvester vessels like insects, but these insects carried powerful weapons. On the Radiant Dawn, Commander Zaltek watched in amazement. How can they move like that? Asked Villasim. The G-forces would kill our pilots. They come from a world 3 times the gravity of ours, Zaltek replied. Their bodies are built to withstand pressures we cannot imagine. A communication came through from Captain Monroe. Commander, we need your remaining ships to target the Harvester escort vessels. Draw them away from the World Eaters. Zaltek hesitated only a moment. All Confederation ships follow the human battle plan. Engage the Harvester escorts. The 4 remaining Confederation ships moved forward. They were not as fast or powerful as the human vessels, but their crews were brave. They fired on the smaller Harvester ships, drawing their attention away from the human battlecruisers. On the lead World Eater, the Harvesters finally realized they faced a serious threat. Their ships had never encountered such direct, aggressive attacks. Their targeting systems struggled to lock onto the fast-moving human vessels. The first World Eater's shields began to fail under the concentrated fire from the Constellation. Elizabeth saw her chance. Bring us in close, she ordered. Point-blank range. Captain, that puts us within their short-range weapon arc, her second-in-command warned. I know, Elizabeth said. Do it anyway. The Constellation swung around, coming dangerously close to the massive Harvester ship. At this range, the human vessel seemed tiny compared to the World Eater, but size wasn't everything. Fire all railguns. Target their command section. The railguns fired. Metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds tore through the Harvester ship's hull. The World Eater's lights flickered and it began to drift off course. First target neutralized, reported the weapons officer. Elizabeth nodded. Move. To the second target, support the Valiant. As the battle raged, Major Jason Cole led a different kind of mission. He and 60 Marines had boarded dropships, small vessels designed to breach enemy hulls. Their target was the second World Eater. Listen up, Cole told his team as their ship approached the target. Our mission is to capture their central database. We need to know where these things came from and how many more are out there. The Marines checked their weapons one last time. They wore advanced environmental suits that would protect them in almost any atmosphere. Each carried multiple weapons and tools for breaching doors and barriers. 30 seconds to impact, the pilot announced. The dropship accelerated toward a weak point in the World Eater's hull, identified by the constellation's scans. Impact was hard. Metal screamed as the dropship's nose cone pierced the harvester vessel's outer hull. "Go, go!" Cole shouted. The Marines poured out of the dropship into the alien environment. The inside of the harvester ship was dark, with strange green lights casting shadows. The air was filled with mist that would have been toxic to breathe without their suits. They met resistance almost immediately. The harvesters themselves were tall, thin beings with multiple limbs. They moved with jerky, insect-like motions. They carried energy weapons that fired purple beams. "Take cover!" Cole ordered as the purple beams struck the wall near them. The Marines spread out, using the ship's strange architecture for protection. They returned fire with practiced precision. Their weapons were designed for this kind of close quarters combat. The harvesters fell back, unused to such fierce resistance. They had encountered many species in their consumption of worlds, but none had fought like these humans. "Push forward," Cole commanded. "We need to reach the central chamber." The Marines advanced through the ship, fighting for every meter. The harvesters tried to stop them, but they were unprepared for the humans' aggressive tactics and physical resilience. One Marine was hit by an energy beam. He fell, his suit smoking. Cole rushed to his side. "Johnson? Status?" The Marine grimaced in pain but raised his weapon. "I'll live, sir. Suit took most of it. Can you move?" "Yes, sir." Cole helped him up. "Stay with the group. We watch out for our own." Meanwhile, in space, the battle had turned in favor of the humans and their Confederation allies. 3 of the World Eaters had been disabled. The smaller harvester vessels were scattered, their formation broken by the unexpected ferocity of the attack. On the Constellation, Elizabeth received a report from the Valiant. "Captain, we've taken heavy damage. Our main engine is offline. Fall back to a defensive position," Elizabeth ordered. "The Intrepid will cover you." The battle was going well, but the cost was high. Human fighters had been lost. The Valiant was damaged. And on the second World Eater, Major Cole and his Marines were fighting for their lives. Cole's team had reached the central chamber of the harvester vessel. It was a large space filled with strange technology. At the center was a glowing column that seemed to pulse with energy. "That's it," said Lieutenant Gray, checking her scanner. "That's their database." Cole nodded. "Set up a perimeter." Gray. "Start the data extraction." As Gray worked to connect their devices to the alien technology, the rest of the Marines formed a defensive circle. The harvesters had realized what they were doing and were sending more forces to stop them. "Incoming!" shouted a Marine as a large group of harvesters entered the chamber. The firefight was intense. Purple energy beams crossed with human bullets. The Marines held their ground, protecting Gray as she worked. "How much longer?" Cole asked, firing at a harvester that had gotten too close. "Almost there," Gray replied, her fingers moving quickly over her equipment. "Their system is complex but follows logical patterns. Just a few more minutes." Cole switched to his communication system. "Constellation, this is Cole. We've reached the database but are under heavy fire. Request extraction in 10 minutes. "Understood, Major," came Elizabeth's voice. "Extraction team is on the way. Hold your position." The Marines fought bravely. Some were injured, but none had fallen. The harvesters kept coming, seemingly willing to sacrifice themselves to protect their secrets. "Got it," Gray finally shouted. "Data extracted. Fall back to the drop ship," Cole ordered. "Orderly withdrawal. Wounded first." The Marines began to move back the way they had come, still fighting. Cole stayed at the rear, making sure no one was left behind. As they reached their dropship, Cole looked back at the harvester vessel. They had what they came for. Now they knew what they were fighting against. The dropship detached from the World Eater's hull and sped back toward the constellation. Behind them, the battle continued. The humans and their Confederation allies were winning, but the fight was not over yet. In the command center of Helios Prime, Zoltek watched the battle with a mixture of awe and fear. The humans fought with a ferocity he had never seen before. They took risks no Confederation species would consider. They seemed to embrace danger, rather than avoid it. "Now I understand why the Council feared them," he said quietly. But today, that fear had saved them. The Deathworlders had answered their call, and the Harvesters were learning what it meant to face an enemy who knew how to fight. The Battle of Helios Prime lasted 26 hours. When it ended, 5 of the 8 Harvester World Eaters had been destroyed. 2 were captured, and 1 had retreated into deep space. The cost was high. The human battlecruiser Valiant was badly damaged. Hundreds of human fighters and crew members were lost. Thousands of Confederation defenders had fallen, but Helios Prime, with its million refugees, had been saved. 3 days after the battle, Captain Elizabeth Monroe stood before an emergency session of the Confederation Council. The meeting was held on Helios Prime itself. The council members kept a noticeable distance from her. Their fear of humans was still strong, despite what had happened. Elizabeth wore her formal uniform. It was clean and pressed, showing no signs of the battle she had just fought. Her face was tired but determined. "On behalf of Earth and humanity, I thank you for allowing me to speak," she began. "The threat from the Harvesters remains. The information we gathered from their ships shows they control a large territory beyond your borders. They have more World Eater ships being built." This was not their entire force. The council members looked at each other with worry. High Counselor Venzera of the Lurians spoke, her crystalline body reflecting the room's lights. "We are deeply grateful for Earth's help. Without your forces, Helios Prime would have been lost." "However," interrupted Counselor Naxdal of the methane-breathing Vorik, "we cannot ignore that your species' military capabilities far exceed what was disclosed during our initial contact." "The quarantine protocols were short-sighted, Commander," Zoltek interrupted. He had been invited to speak about the battle. "Counselors, I saw humans fight and die to protect our people. Yes, they are physically stronger than us. Yes, their history includes conflict on scales we can barely understand. But they chose to help us when they could have stayed safe behind the quarantine line." Elizabeth waited for the council to quiet down. "Earth proposes a mutual defense alliance. We don't seek to join the Confederation. Our societies are too different for that right now. But we can offer protection against threats like the Harvesters. In return, we ask for cultural and technological exchange, regulated trade, and the lifting of quarantine restrictions." The council debated for days. Some counselors feared that exposure to human culture might contaminate their peaceful societies. Others worried that human military technology, if shared, could upset the balance of power within the Confederation. In the end, practicality won. The Harvester threat was real, and humanity had proven both their military power and their willingness to use it to help others. On the 7th day, the Earth Confederation Defense Treaty was signed on the deck of the Constellation. As the document was finalized, Admiral Peter Daniels, who had arrived with reinforcements from Earth, shared a quiet moment with Commander Zoltek. "You know," the Admiral said, looking out at the stars, "on Earth we have an old saying, 'Good fences make good neighbors.'" Zoltek's translator struggled with the human expression, but he understood the meaning. "And now we find ourselves on the same side of the fence, facing a common threat." "Exactly." The Admiral extended his hand in the human greeting gesture. After a moment, Zoltek reciprocated. Meanwhile, Elizabeth met with the science team that had analyzed the data from the Harvester ships. Major Cole and Lieutenant Gray were there, along with several Confederation scientists. "What have we learned?" Elizabeth asked. Lieutenant Gray displayed a star map showing a large section of the galaxy. "The Harvesters control this region, beyond Confederation space. They've been consuming worlds for centuries, moving slowly outward." "Why didn't the Confederation detect them before?" Cole asked. A Lurian scientist named Meltier answered. They approached from a direction we rarely monitor. Our exploration has always focused on the galactic core, not the outer rim. Their technology is different from anything we've seen, Gray continued. They don't communicate the way we do. They seem to operate as a collective, sharing information through their ships. Are they intelligent? Elizabeth asked. Did they understand our attempts to communicate? Yes, said Meltier. But they don't care. To them, all other life is just ... resources. They consume, then move on, Elizabeth nodded grimly. Then we need to be ready when they return, and they will return. The next day, Elizabeth visited Helios Prime's main refugee center. 1 million people from various Confederation species had been saved because of the human intervention. As she walked through the crowded facility, many aliens moved away from her. Others stared with a mixture of fear and curiosity. A small Luridian child, her crystalline body glowing with a soft blue light, approached Elizabeth. The child's parent tried to pull her back, but she broke free and ran up to the human captain. You're from Earth, the child said in simple Confederation standard. You fought the bad ships. Elizabeth knelt down to be at eye level with the child. Yes, we did. Why did you help us? My parents said Earth people are dangerous. Elizabeth smiled gently. Just because someone can be dangerous doesn't mean they want to hurt you. Sometimes being dangerous means you can protect others who can't protect themselves. The child considered this, then said, like the guard animals some planets have? Something like that, Elizabeth replied. We're different from you, but we share the same galaxy. We want to live in peace, just like you do. The child reached out and touched Elizabeth's hand, a brave gesture. Thank you for saving us. As Elizabeth left the refugee center, she found Commander Zoltek waiting for her. That was a good thing you did, he said. Talking to the child? Children are usually less afraid than adults, Elizabeth replied. They haven't learned all the reasons to fear yet. Perhaps we adults have something to learn from them, Zoltek said. I admit, when I sent that distress call, I feared what might happen if humans came. I feared you might be as bad as the harvesters, just in a different way. And now? Now I understand that strength can protect as well as harm, that being what did you call it, a Deathworlder? That being a Deathworlder doesn't make you evil. It just makes you different, Elizabeth nodded. We've had to learn that lesson ourselves many times throughout our history. Power requires responsibility. 2 weeks later, the constellation prepared to return to Earth. Repairs had been completed on the Valiant. The captured harvester ships were being studied by joint human Confederation teams. The first cultural exchange groups were being organized. Elizabeth stood on her bridge, watching as the blue curve of Helios Prime filled the main screen. Course laid in for Earth, Captain, said Commander Rivers. Ready when you are. Thank you, Bill. Elizabeth took a last look at the alien world they had saved. Take us home. As the constellation moved away from Helios Prime, Elizabeth thought about what had happened. The Confederation had feared humans because they were different, because they came from a harsh world that made them strong and tough. They had built a fence to keep the Deathworlders away, but when danger came, when they faced extinction, they had called for help. And the Deathworlders had answered. It was the beginning of something new. Not perfect, not without challenges, but a start. Humans would protect the Confederation from threats like the Harvesters. The Confederation would share their knowledge and culture with Earth. Together, they would be stronger than either could. Be alone, the galaxy would never be the same. And that was a good thing.